My sister has a seizure disorder, and we've been dealing with that our whole lives. Since she was about 4, it cropped up. And, just every month there were seizures, and they were bad, and there were grand mals, and it was just a stress on the family. And I had recently moved out, I'd gotten married, and my mom called and said that she found somewhere, and that when my sister went there, the first adjustment cut her seizure from a 15-minute seizure to like a 2-minute seizure, and my sister went straight to sleep after the seizure, which was astonishing. That just didn't happen. And I thought, when someone has what my sister has, which is shaken baby syndrome, and has seizures like that, everybody comes up with quack cures. So I was kind of like, well, this sounds amazing, but is it going to be something that we put our faith in and it falls through? And I waited and I watched, and sure enough, her seizures became less intense. They began to shorten in duration, and afterwards there was less recuperation time. She wasn't as spacey, and she was actually able to be weaned off a lot of some of the stuff that was keeping her down, so to speak, so that she wouldn't have seizures. And I thought, this is incredible, but I still didn't connect my issues, which I have a lot of trouble sustaining pregnancies. I have a lot of trouble. I have a lot of chemical pregnancies, which basically means that everything comes together the first few days and then it stops. And my cycles were extremely painful because I have polycystic ovarian syndrome. And the doctors basically, they were giving me progesterone, and that would make me aggressive, or it'd make me too sleepy because they couldn't get the adjustment of the amount. And when you mess with hormones, your whole personality goes down the drain. And I was gaining weight hand over fist. I'd always been very thin, and I was extremely overweight, very unhappy, with the desperation of wanting to get pregnant. And this had been years, and we'd finally given up the idea. The doctors had told me, because in the course of all this, they gave me fertility medicine, and not realizing the fertility medicine, I was already insulin resistant without knowing it. And the fertility medicine just tipped that scale, and I became diabetic. And then they told me, oh, we're so sorry, we didn't realize that would happen, but there's nothing we can do. There's no backpedaling now, it's done. This is forever, and you'll never have kids. So the very effort to have children retarded my ability to have children, which was just so frustrating. And so we're in this just absolute pit of despair. And my mom kept telling me, you need to go to him. It's not just head trauma. It's not just back trauma. You need to go see him. And I thought, all right, fine. And in the midst of that, I landed another pregnancy. And this was our 8th or 9th pregnancy in a matter of 5 years. And I had gotten much farther in this pregnancy than any of the others, so there was some hope. But they started to tell me they were seeing signs of trouble. They were seeing problems. And I came to the doctor, and he told me, I know you, he looked me over a little bit. We didn't even do x-rays because I was pregnant, but he knew right away that I'd broken my tailbone as a child, which I had, and that I had a scoliosis just from his little meter. And he began to do adjustments, and I was in excruciating pain as the pregnancy was pushing my spine around. Within seconds, the pressure and the release off my back was miraculous. I felt like my hips moved again. I felt like my body all of a sudden loosened. There was tightness in my shoulders. There was stiffness. It was almost arthritic. And I just felt as limber as I had when I was a cheerleader. I was astonished because I'm not old, but I certainly my body was behaving quite a bit older. It was liberating to feel like my joints had been oiled. And I went into my next appointment, and they gave me a bunch of tests, and I came out with the chance of having a problem of 1 in 10,000, which is unheard of. The doctor was astonished. And they basically told me, you don't have to come back to the maternal fetal med people anymore. And the other thing that I noticed right away was whenever I would get an adjustment, my blood sugar numbers would just go right down to normal. And it was so much easier to keep track of them, and so much easier to eat. And, I was able not to have to get on an insulin pump as early as they said I would. And once I was done being pregnant, they said, once you deliver, it's just going to be right back where you started. You're going to be worse with your diabetes. And it wasn't the case at all. My diabetes was much better. My numbers were much more controlled. And the more I went to him, the quicker my recovery from giving birth was. People were astonished because I did have a C-section. And I think the next week I was up and walking. And I was a little sore. It wasn't like I was, doing backflips, but I didn't have such a long recovery period. And for a diabetic to not have a long recovery period is also a miracle. And he began to adjust my baby. She's 8 months and hasn't had any what is that called? Any ear infections. She doesn't have any issues. She's growing like a weed, extremely intelligent, you know, and my pediatricians keep telling me, well, you know, at some point she's gonna have an ear infection. That's just normal. And we're like, no, she's not. You don't understand. We don't have to mess with ear infections or crying nights or spit up baby or gastrointestinal problems, like all of that. The moment she showed a sign of it, a quick adjustment, and she was right back on the road. And the next month we wound up pregnant, and here we are expecting our second baby. And that's astonishing to me that I, the woman that could not have a child, now has 2, or is going to have 2. And I have no fears that we're going to be able to build the family size we want, and that it will be at no detrimental cost to my health. I'm thrilled that we found Dr. Benjamin. I'm thrilled to see my sister progressing so wonderfully to the point that she can soon become an independent person and go on with her college and go on with her dreams and not be hindered by seizures. I'm thrilled to see the product of my little girl that sits in front of me and is there, and to know that I have another one inside and that one is going to be fine, and we're going to give birth and move right on to the next. So it's wonderful being here, and everybody is just so encouraging. And when I walk in, you know, they always, hi, Mrs. Coast, how are you? And I look forward to coming. It's like a family visit. My little family trots out to visit Dr. Benjamin and the staff, and we get our adjustments and we trot home. So yeah, good stuff, good stuff.